Hi everyone, this is TOC number 4. At the end of these notes, you'll be able to say, I can convert decimals, fractions, percents, and scientific notation. So your essential question is, how do I convert? And then we can just abbreviate these. So how do I convert D, F, P, and S, and that stands for scientific notation. Okay, what are fractions, decimals, and percents? So with this first part of the notes, we're just going to be talking about fractions, decimals, and percents, and then we'll move on to scientific notation, and we'll make sure to define that before we work with it. So a blank is part of a whole, that is a fraction. A blank is a number that uses place value and a decimal point. The decimal is read with the word and. Okay, so this is a decimal. And whenever we have a decimal, when we see the decimal point, we're going to say the word and. That's the correct way, the proper way to say it. Blank means per 100, out of 100, or over 100, and that's when we're talking about percent. All right, so now we're going to move on to converting. We have methods in which we can convert by using the calculator and without using the calculator. If it is easy to convert without the calculator, we're going to talk about the way in which you can do that, just so that you have that also in your toolbox. Okay, so using the calculator, type the top number, which is the numerator, divided by the bottom number, which is the denominator. So I'm going to type 3 divided by 5 in the calculator, and when we do that, we get our decimal, which is 0 and 6/10. All right, 1/2, that should be one that is just natural to you. So if you type 1 divided by 2 in the calculator, you're going to get 0 and 5/10. And then here we have 3 and 2/3. Okay, so since that 3 is a whole number, what we're going to do is that's going to be in front of the decimal. And then we're going to type the 2/3 into the calculator. So 2 divided by 3. And when we do that, we get 0.6 repeating. So I already have my number in front of my decimal. Now I'm going to write the 6, and I'm going to put a little hat over it. So that is 3 and 6/10 repeated. Okay, now we're going to convert decimals to fractions, and you can do that by writing the fraction just like you say it, with a denominator of 10 or 100, and then simplify the fraction. So let's go ahead and fill in those blanks. So 10 or 100. Alrighty, so for this first one, we have 0 and 4/10. Okay, so we're going to write it as we're saying it, so 4/10. And then when we simplify that, we realize that both the numerator and the denominator are even, so we can divide by 2 on both the top and the bottom. And when we do that, we get 2/5, and I can't simplify anymore. So that is our final answer. All right, for the next one, we have 0 and 8/100. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write that as I said it. And then as you can tell, both of these are even, so they can be divided by 2, but I also want you to think, what else can they be divided by besides 2? They both can be divided by 4, and when we do that, you're going to get 2 as your numerator, and when you divide 100 by 4, you're going to get 25 as your denominator, and that's as far as we can go. All right, for the next one, we have 1 and 7/10. Okay, so this 1 is going to be not a part of the fraction, it's a whole number. Okay, and then the 7 is going to be in the numerator and 10 is going to be in the denominator. And since 7 is a prime number, I can't simplify anymore. So this is the most simplified version of the fraction. Alrighty, how do I convert decimals to percents? And what you're going to do is you're going to convert a decimal to a percent, blank the decimal point, blank places to the right. So you're going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right, or if you have your calculator, you can multiply by 100, and so these two things are the same. Don't forget to add that percent sign once you convert it to a percent, because we won't know that it's a percent unless you have that sign. Okay, so for the first one, I'm going to just do it without the calculator. So we're going to move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right. And when we do that, we get 23 and then add that percent sign. So 23%. With this one, I want you to use the calculator. You don't have to, but just so that we can see both versions. So type in 0.07. So that's 0 and 7 hundredths. And then press the time, so multiply by 100. And you get 7, so you get 7%. So now we're going the other way. We're going to convert percents to decimals. So in this case, to convert percents to decimals, you want to move the decimal point 2 spaces to the left. Last time we moved it to the right. This time we're moving it to the left. And that is the same thing as dividing by 100 in the calculator. Okay, so this time we're moving to the left, we're dividing, whereas last time when we were going from decimals to percents, we were moving to the right and we were multiplying. Okay, so right here, what we would do is we would put our decimal point would go where the percent sign is. And if I'm going to move the decimal 2 spaces to the left, then I'm going to go past the 5, past the 4, and this is where my new decimal point is going to be. And I need to make sure that I put a 0 in front of it. So as you can see, 45% is going to translate into 0 and 45 hundredths. Okay, now let's try it with the calculator. So you're going to type in 8. And then I want you to put divided by, and then 100. And when you do that, you're going to get 0 and 8 hundredths. Okay. And then with this one, let's go ahead and just try and doing it by hand. Okay, so we're still going to put that decimal point where that percent sign is, and we're going to move it 2 spaces to the left. And so now it's right behind the 1. And so this one as a decimal, 135% as a decimal is 1 and 35 hundredths. All right, so when converting fractions to percents, we're actually going to need to convert the fraction to a decimal and then that decimal to a percent. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're first going to convert this fraction, 7/10, into a decimal. This one's pretty easy. So like I said, the fraction itself, to change it to a decimal, it kind of sounds like what you say when you say the fraction. So 7/10. So in that case, the decimal would be 0 and 7/10. Okay, so now we're going to convert it to a percent. Now I'm going to write in red, and we're going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So here we go. And then once we do that, we see that the decimal point is after that 0. And instead of having a decimal as our final answer, we need to make sure that we have, we add that percent sign. Okay, so it's 70%. All right, this one's a little bit tougher. So for this one, you can use your calculator. So to go from that fraction to a decimal, you're going to do the numerator divided by the denominator. So 1 divided by 8, and that gives you 0 and 125 thousandths. Okay, now we're going to convert it to a percent. So we're going to move that decimal point 2 places to the right. Okay, and now we're going to rewrite it and add that percent sign at the end. So in this case, the percentage would be 12 and 12.5%. Alrighty, so now we're going to do converting percents to fractions. So what you need to do is you're going to get rid of that percent sign, and then you're going to put whatever that is in the numerator, so the number in the numerator, and you're going to put 100 in the denominator. So in this case, for this first one, I'm going to put 30 in the numerator and then 100 in the denominator. And I can simplify these. As you guys see, there's a 0 behind this 30, and then there's a 0 that this 100 ends in a 0. So both of these can be simplified by 10. So I'm just going to kind of like cross out those zeros. And so now we have 3/10. That's our simplified fraction. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the next one. So we have 6%, so 6 over 100, and in this case, I could try to divide by 3, but 100 doesn't go into 3, but I can divide by 2 because both of them are even. So when I divide 6 by 2, I get 3, and when I divide 100 by 2, I get 50. And so I cannot simplify anymore, so that's my final answer. This is just a little something for you to note. If the percent has a decimal in it, you must convert the percent to a decimal, then you can make it a percent. Alrighty guys, so converting 6.1% to a decimal, that's going to help us understand what to do a little bit better. Okay, so if we move the decimal point 2 spaces to the left, we need to add that 0 and that extra space and then put the decimal point there. So let me go ahead and rewrite this. So this would be 0 and 61 thousandths. Okay, so since this would be 61 thousandths, it would look like this as a fraction. 61 is a prime number, and so I cannot divide 61 by anything but 1 and itself, and so you're going to leave that fraction as it is. What is scientific notation in standard form? When a number is expressed in scientific notation, it is written as the product of a number and a power of 10. The number must be greater than or equal to 1 and less than 10. Okay, so this right here, this is standard form. This is what you're used to seeing. Okay, this is 428,000. And in order to get it into scientific notation, we need to put a decimal point somewhere in here. And the number in front of the decimal has to be equal or greater than 1 and less than 10. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the decimal point after the 4 because that is equal or greater than 1 and less than 10. And then I'm going to write everything else, even the zeros, after the decimal point. Okay, we are not done writing this in scientific notation. We need to figure out how many spaces would I have to move that decimal again to go back to standard form, because that's going to play a role in how we write our scientific notation. Okay, so if I was to move this decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, then I would have my standard form. Okay, so how you're going to write your scientific notation is you're going to write the 4.28. This time you don't need to write the zeros. And we said that you moved the decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So the way in which that you write this is you're going to write 4.28 times 10, and then your exponent for the 10 is going to be a positive 5 because you moved it positive 5 spaces because you went to the right. Alrighty guys, so next we're going to go from scientific notation to standard form. First you want to look at the exponent. So if the exponent is positive, you're going to move the decimal to the right, that amount of spaces. If your exponent is negative, then you're going to move the decimal to the left, that amount of spaces, okay? So let's look at the first one. We have 3 4/10 times 10 to the 5th power. Okay, so let's rewrite this and kind of write it like in the middle of your page. Okay, and this is a positive 5, so we're going to move that decimal point 5 spaces to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and rewrite it again. So, and you're going to put the zeros. Okay, and we're going to put a comma where it would be natural, okay? So after that first 0, when looking from the left, you're going to put a comma there. And so in standard form, this is 340,000. All right, so now we're going to try it with one that is negative. Okay, so we have 2 9/10 times 10 to the negative 2nd power. Okay, so go ahead and write the 2.9. And in this case, since the 2 is negative, we're going to be moving the decimal point to the left. And we're moving it 2 spaces, so 1, 2. Okay, and so then put the decimal point there. Okay, so we're going to rewrite this. And we need a 0 in front of that decimal. So we're going to go ahead and put it there and then circle our answer. So our answer is 0 29/100. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video. Please reach out to your math teacher if you have any questions. I hope you have a great day.